Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Across the Sky, our Lee Enterprises weather podcast. I'm Matt Holliner, covering weather for Lee's websites across the Midwest from Chicago, and I'm joined by two other members of the Lee weather team. We're short Kirsten today, but we do have Joe Martucci from the Press of Atlantic City in New Jersey, and Sean Sublett from the Richmond Times-Dispatch in Richmond, Virginia. Guys, how you doing? It's not quite as fun this week since we're virtual again and not in person like we were in Milwaukee last week.
I miss seeing Sean already.
I know. Joe is so dapper. He brings that Jersey style wherever he goes. So I looked back at some of the photos of all of us in Milwaukee, and Joe just looks like he looks sharp. I think about the Brat Pack. The Rat Pack, excuse me. Brat Pack is 80s. Rat Pack is earlier 20th century, 50s.
That's okay.
But you've got that nice, cool, hip, mid 20th century Jersey, New York look. Looks good, man. You're on point.
Well, hey, listen, I appreciate that. We do the Suitcast every day. Check it out on Instagram at JoeMarkWX. We got my New Jersey tie on today because it is Jersey after all. It is Thursday. Thursday. So, I appreciate that. But you guys were all looking good too. It was a great time being with everybody. I have to say, though, you guys have really been getting into my subconscious over the past couple of days, because after I have left y'all in Milwaukee, I ran into a situation on Wednesday where I thought maybe y'all would be more appropriate. I was at the Wildwood, New Jersey, the National Marbles Tournament, and I'm talking to two girls. They're participating. They're in sixth grade. And I said, you guys. And as soon as I said you guys, I said, you know what? It's two girls. It's not guys. I said, but we're just so used to saying it. Maybe y'all would be more appropriate in this situation. So I thought of y'all as soon as I thought of that. So that is my Milwaukee
You look like
story.
You're in pain when you say that.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Slowly being converted. Slowly.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. Let's put it that way.
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while
You have
to
to
indoctrinate you.
You have to consciously think about that. That's something I got to think about. But
yeah,
no.
And again, when I go to Pittsburgh later, I got to say yins to try to fit in.
Yins. I feel like yins rolls off my tongue a little better than y'all.
I can understand that.
Yeah. But no, it was great being with everybody. This was the first time, four of us being under one roof, although Matt, Kirsten, and I did see each other before. And, a lot of good people to talk to, lots of, networking, lots of good talks. We're going to get some of these people that we saw in Milwaukee. We'll get them on the pod over time here. And got to give kudos to really, I think Sean was doing most of the legwork on that one, scooping people into the podcast, scooping them in when we're at a reception or in between our coffee breaks. Sean was he was the man with the plan.
I was like, hey, you want to come on our podcast, right?
Right. National podcast.
So, we're hoping to have some folks from the National Hurricane Center later on before the hurricane season is done, as we get into the teeth of it, if you will, toward the middle of August. But we don't want to give away all the surprises just yet.
That's right.
But we're excited about some things coming up here in the next several weeks. But yeah, great seeing everybody. Cheese curds were good.
Oh my God.
Cheese curds were good.
Oak Barrel Public House.
Oh yeah, man. They were seasoned.
No free ads
right.
except for this one.
Oh man.
There's some pretty good beer in Milwaukee too. I enjoyed sampling the local brews while we were there.
I actually bought cheese curds on Friday night to take back home for Saturday, but I forgot to put them in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
my wife didn't appreciate that.
So good.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
No. So I failed on that one.
Matt, you're running the show this week. We're going to talk about tornadoes a little bit more, right, man?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this week, we're still in the heart of severe weather season. So we just wanted to, really, because I keep hearing these myths that keep coming up. People keep bringing these things up, and I family members, friends of mine, they say, "Oh, well, isn't this no?" And so I'm always clarifying. So we just want to do an episode where we try and knock out as many myths as we can. So we each chose 3 tornado myths that we think are the most egregious and the ones that keep getting shared for unknown reasons. We're going to try and clear that up. So this is going to be a total of 9. No particular order. We just each picked 3 that we think are the worst and the ones that we've heard the most. And we're going to try and clarify and hopefully put an end to these myths. So I'm going to get started. The first one for me that I hear all too frequently is that people think that tornadoes cannot cross rivers, cannot cross lakes, cannot cross bays, cannot cross a body of water, that they'll just fizzle out once they hit that water. And that is absolutely not true. And some people think if you're on the other side of the Mississippi River, for example, you'll be safe. The tornado will not cross the river. Well, tornadoes have crossed the Mississippi River. I think somehow some people think that if the tornado sucks up water, it'll mess up the rotation, but that is not the case. It can suck up anything in a tornado. Washing up water into its rotation is not going to disrupt it. So don't think if you see a tornado on the opposite side of the lake that it can't cross that lake and get to the other side, or even a really big body of water, a whole bay. It can cross that bay too. I think, Joe, you had some experience with this in New Jersey. Wasn't there a tornado recently there that crossed the bay in New Jersey?
Yeah, we've had a couple of different, kind of tornadoes that have been over water, which are water spouts. Yeah, there was during Tropical Storm Isaias, which was in 2020, we actually had two tornadoes that went onto the barrier islands, the shore towns, and then actually crossed the bay and then went on to the mainland. So, and it actually brought in, I'm fairly confident in saying in both of those cases, it brought more damage to the mainland than it did on the barrier island. In fact, you could see the rotation in the ocean for like 20 miles. I mean, if this was over land, it would be a long track tornado. The other thing is too, sometimes you see water, just straight up water spouts off the coast of the Jersey Shore. I mean, usually this is a rough estimate. I mean, at least once a summer, you get a video of a water spout somewhere off the Jersey Shore. So yeah, I mean, water really has no impact on the tornado once the tornado is on the ground or on the water.
All right, so that's myth one. We have 8 more to go. So Joe, do you want to go next with your myth?
Yeah, we can do that. One that I want to share was that you can outdrive a tornado. So here's why you how about this? Don't want to outdrive a tornado. One, tornadoes can take erratic paths. It might be moving north for a while. You say, okay, I'm going to move south. It's going to be fine. But it ends up turning south. The other thing is too, roads are finite. It's a straight line or a curved line. You don't have free mobility to move, everywhere. I mean, even if you have an ATV, you're not going to be just, rolling off the road and into someone's farm. That's also not good. And if there's buildings around, there's that too to consider. So can you outspeed a tornado? Yeah, if you guys were going in the same direction, yeah, you could. But because of the fact that road systems confine you to where you are, along with the fact that tornadoes can sometimes take, erratic paths. If you're in your car and you're in a tornado warning, you want to make sure that you find somewhere, a low-lying ditch. You want to make sure you get somewhere safe. I wouldn't go under an overpass. I don't know if that's going to be a myth somewhere along down the line, but you don't want to do that either. And if you're right next to a building, you can get in there, get in there, but you don't want to be just hanging out in your car, driving around during a tornado warning. I mean, I've seen, a couple of times tornado warnings. You see the tornado in the distance, and then you see a highway that's like pretty jam-packed with people. And you're like, geez, like that's a scary thing to be through. So that is my first myth. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but that is my first myth.
No, that's a good point, Joe, because also, there was a recent study that was done where looking at the average speed that tornadoes move, not the wind speeds within the tornado, but the speed that the actual tornado is moving. And I think it came out to an average of like only 15 to 20 miles per hour, but there was a wide range. And there are tornadoes that can travel 60 miles per hour. It depends on the system. If it's a tropical tornado, for example, sometimes those that are embedded within a hurricane, those can travel faster. So it's not like every tornado is going to be slow moving and something that you could quickly outdrive. Some of them are moving very quickly, 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. And that's a little bit difficult to outrun in your car. And you bring up a great point about first being able to clearly see the tornado, identify it, and then not exactly knowing where the path of the road is going to go. I think the biggest takeaway is just a car is not a safe place to be within a tornado warning. The best thing you can do if you get a tornado warning while you're driving is get to the nearest permanent building, get out of your car and go into that permanent building.
Agree. So I could take it from there. That kind of dovetails on the one I wanted to talk about, and mountains, and to your point, Joe, especially here in the eastern United States, where the roads curve all over the place. In the plains, there's a little more of a grid structure to the roads on the true plains in Nebraska, parts of Oklahoma, Kansas. But I mean, here in the east, we've got more hills and thus mountains. So it's tougher because you got to drive all these curves. The tornadoes can go straight. But some people still think that the mountains are going to prevent tornadoes. And that just is not the case. That is simply not the case. Now, there is just a tiny grain of truth that in the mountains, it does make it harder for them to form because the mesocyclone, or that part of the rotating thunderstorm, gets started higher up in the clouds. And then you have to have rotation of the winds very close to the ground for the full funnel to, kind of drop out of the sky or basically work its way from the base of the cloud to the ground. So in a place with a lot of varied terrain, that flow isn't going to be as smooth into it, but it's not going to prevent it. It will make it a little bit more difficult. Sure. Is it going to prevent it? No. It's a little more of a challenge to get that spiral, to get that funnel all the way in contact with the ground. But there have been some epic tornado outbreaks over the past 40 or 50 years in places that have mountains in the east. There was an infamous tornado outbreak in May of 1985 across the central Appalachians. We've had tornadoes here in western parts of Virginia, EF1s, EF2s. So these things do happen in mountains, excuse me. So do they protect you? They're not really protecting you. They make it a little harder for tornadoes to form, but this is not something you want to just ignore if you live in a mountainous area.
Yeah, I do think there's this sense of safety that people get, especially in some Western states, like California, maybe Oregon, Washington, states that don't experience tornadoes nearly as frequently as places farther east. But every state in the U.S. has experienced a tornado. And they do definitely occur in mountainous terrain. There was a case of a tornado actually crossing the Continental Divide in Yellowstone National Park once. So at a very high elevation. So they can occur anywhere. Yes, in some places they occur much more frequently than others, but nowhere is completely safe from a tornado. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Tornadoes can cross bodies of waters. They can form in hills and mountainous areas if the conditions are right, and the conditions may not be as right as often in certain areas, but a tornado can absolutely form. Okay, I'll go with my second one, and I'm going to blame the movie Twister on this one, which I think that'll be a future podcast episode too, talking about weather movies, and Twister will definitely be discussed. But the biggest thing in that movie that is wrong to me, and there are multiple things that are wrong, but oftentimes in that movie, you hear the meteorologist saying, oh, that's an EF2, that's an EF3, or that EF5 just touched down. Or in that time it was F5 and F3 in the movie. That shows you the movie's getting kind of old now, from 1996. Now we have the EF scale, but that's not how it works. You can't just look at a tornado and say that's an F2, that's an F3, that's an F5. Now it is true that typically the larger the tornado, the stronger the winds, but there are very skinny tornadoes that have produced EF4 damage, EF5 damage that aren't necessarily large. And the only way you can actually rate a tornado is after the damage has occurred. We don't assign ratings when we issue a tornado warning. The National Weather Service, when they issue a tornado warning, is just issuing a tornado warning. Now, they can issue a tornado emergency if they know it's a very large tornado that has been causing a lot of damage. But ratings aren't given until after the storm has moved through, after the tornado has passed. Then you go and look at the damage that is caused. Then you assign that rating, because the rating is based on the damage that is seen. Then you can estimate what the wind speeds were and you can give the tornado a rating. But you can't just look at a tornado and give it a rating. That was a big thing in the movie, like, oh, an EF5 is coming our way. It's like, no, you can't rate the tornado until after it's moved through, after the National Weather Service has gone there and they do a storm survey, they look at the damage, then they assign it a rating. In general, yes, typically bigger means stronger, but not always. There can be skinny tornadoes that still have violent winds and can be rated very highly, higher than you might think just by looking at it. So you can't look at a tornado and rate it. That's not how it works.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, this involves drone footage or, a couple hours out in the scene. So it's not something you can just make a spot adjustment for there too. This one's like, it's not like a specific myth per se, but it's about tornado watches and warnings and what they mean. The analogy everyone likes to use is think about a chef in the kitchen. A tornado watch means that you got the ingredients laid out on the table, but you haven't cooked anything yet. They're just sitting there. The ingredients for tornadoes are right. But if a tornado, either radar indicated tornado or a visibly confirmed tornado is imminent, then that's a tornado warning. That means the meal is done and then you are ready to, you have to go to your safe space, which is going to be the lowest floor possible. Basement's great, away from windows as well. And as close to the center of your building as well. I just want to touch upon this, with the center of the building, like I live in an apartment complex, right? So if a tornado was to come through here, I want to make it to the center of the building, not necessarily my specific apartment. Obviously, you want to get down as low as possible. But, a watch is issued often hours before tornado development actually occurs. And that warning, too, there's another myth to kind of misspell with the tornado warning. A warning doesn't mean that a tornado is actually you don't need visible confirmation for a tornado warning, but you need the radar to at least strongly indicate that there is a tornado on the ground, because sometimes it's at night, you can't see it. Sometimes there is a tornado, but you can't see it. I think Sean's going to get into that one in just a minute. And sometimes you're just in rural areas. And if you're really rural, it's, and there's a tornado spinning around, but no one's actually looking at it, you still got a tornado warning. And that just goes to how great the National Weather Service is and the ability for them to be all across the country. It doesn't matter if you're in New York City, Dubuque, Iowa, or on the US-Canada border in the middle of nowhere. The National Weather Service is watching out for tornadoes in every square inch of the United States.
Now, Joe, I think that's a good point, because I still think we try and make it as clear as possible, but I still see people getting confused on the difference between a watch and a warning. There are a lot of people that when a tornado watch gets issued, they think a tornado is occurring or is about to occur. And really all it means is that the conditions are favorable for tornadoes. And it may very well be a tornado watch gets issued and there aren't any tornadoes. In fact, that would be a great situation. But you don't have to panic when a watch gets issued. You don't have to rush to that safe space. However, when a watch gets issued, you should start thinking about, if a tornado warning was issued, if there was a tornado head towards me, what would I do? That's what the purpose of the watch is, to make sure people are aware that there is a threat, there could be tornadoes, and now's the time to start thinking about certain things. The biggest thing I always tell people when a watch gets issued, if you're under a tornado watch, well, what should you do? Because I think that's what confuses people. People get this sense of like, well, I need to do something, right? Well, go over your tornado safety plan. Also, a tornado watch is kind of a heads up that it's going to be stormy weather. So you probably shouldn't be out and about, because you certainly don't want to be caught in these kind of storms in your car. And if there was a tornado, again, we talked about how a car is not a safe place to be during a tornado. So try to avoid traveling during that time when a tornado watch is in effect. Try and just stay indoors and don't be out and about and venturing out. And the other big thing is, as soon as that tornado watch gets issued, go ahead and plug in your phone. Make sure it is charged up, because you're going to want to be able to get notifications if a warning is issued. Also, because there's likely going to be stormy weather, the power could go out. And if the power goes out and your phone is already at 10% charge, that's not where you want to be when the power goes out. So anytime a watch gets issued, I always say, go ahead and plug in your phone, get it on the charger so you can have a full charge in case the power does go out. You can still get that warning information.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point, Matt. A watch means you need to be on the watch out for something in the coming few hours. A warning means it's here, it's about to hit, and you need to take your action immediately. This is a nomenclature battle we've been fighting for decades, and we'll never quite get there, but we're just going to have to continue to remind people when the time is relevant, what the difference is. This is what the watch means. Get ready. This is what the warning means. Go do it. Because here's the thing. People think they're going to always see the tornado. And this leads us into my next part, is that you're not always going to see it, especially here in the Eastern United States. From the Mississippi River to the East Coast, a lot of the tornadoes in this part of the country, compared to on the plains, will be wrapped in rain, and you're just not going to see them. I think one of the issues we still have in trying to communicate this is that people still think about the classic tornado they saw in the movie The Wizard of Oz, right? And that's what it's going to look like. because that's what they've seen on TV. Those are the most photogenic ones. So that's what they're going to go look for. And yeah, those happen. But there's a lot of ones that are simply not going to be easy to see. One, because they're wrapped in rain. But two, the definition of a tornado is a violent column of wind in contact with the ground. Sometimes what we think of as the tornado or, the funnel is not visible. That's actually called a condensation funnel. It's a cloud, right? But sometimes the cloud hasn't formed, but there's still a wild circulation going on. And you could see debris. And I've seen this in drones, especially these last 5 or 6 years, as drone footage has become more and more prevalent. Oh, yeah. I could see stuff just being picked up, but I don't see a condensation funnel. There's no funnel. What's going on? It's a tornado, but the pressure has not dropped enough for the temperature to drop enough near the center of circulation for moisture to condense to form a cloud, in this case, a funnel. All right. So you could still very much have a tornado that you cannot see. This is why it's especially important to take cover when a tornado warning is issued. And as we've said before, we'll probably say it every day as long as we do this line of work. Lowest level of whatever dwelling you're in, away from windows, as many walls between you and the outside as possible. But yeah, totally hear you there.
It's unfortunate that, this is a good thing that we really need to stress, that you don't have to see the tornado in order that it doesn't mean that it's not there. These things aren't visible. And that's why nighttime tornadoes tend to be more deadly. For multiple reasons. One, people just not getting that warning information if it's in the middle of the night. Again, maybe their phone died, maybe the weather radio wasn't turned on and people sleep through it. But also, I think a big part of it is people want that visual confirmation, whether it's from a TV footage, something that a storm spotter shot, because sometimes you can get that video and then people see that physical tornado there and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the real thing. I need to take it seriously. Well, it's less likely that there's going to be video of the tornado in the middle of the night. Also, if you just go out on your front porch looking for it, you're probably not going to see it at night. And for some people, they need that visible confirmation of it before they take action. And that's why ultimately nighttime tornadoes are just more deadly. Don't wait on needing to see the tornado, because it is certainly possible you may not be able to see it. It may just look like a wall of rain, these rain-wrapped tornadoes that do happen more often, especially farther to the east, and during hurricanes. Tropical tornadoes, these little short-lived tornadoes that are embedded within tropical storms and hurricanes, they're often rain-wrapped. You won't be able to see them. We can see them on radar, and that's why radar is fantastic. We can pick up on the rotation. So even if it says a radar indicated tornado, still treat it like a tornado on the ground. You've got to take those seriously, because there is a very good chance in a tropical situation or in the eastern U.S. particularly that you may not. And at night, you may not be able to see that tornado. That doesn't mean that it's not there and not going to do a lot of damage. All right. So we've each done 2. I think it's time to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and do one more each. I think we've saved the best for last. I know that the one I have is one I I still can't believe it is being shared again and again, and we're going to put them to rest. So we're going to take a quick break. Stick around though. We've got 3 more myths for you right after this break.
An important message from Blue Ridge Hospice. There may be several hospices now claiming to serve the area, but Blue Ridge Hospice is the only local hospice that has been serving here for 40 plus years, operates the only hospice inpatient care center, conducts the only community-wide grief and bereavement programs, offers a nationally recognized music therapy program in conjunction with Shenandoah University, outscores every other Virginia hospice in Medicare's quality scores, and so much more. Blue Ridge Hospice, the first, the best. Find out more at blueridgehospice.org.
Welcome back, everyone, to Across the Sky. We are counting down. We just realized that it's not right to do a top 9 tornado myths. We're not going to leave you hanging. We're going to do top 10. The top 10 tornado myths, because we were just spitballing during the break. And we were like, you know what? We can come up with another one.
It's not that hard to find one more.
And then we realized there is a big one that we were forgetting that we need to add. So we're doing the top 10 tornado myths. Now I want to recount the 6 that we've done so far. We've gone around with Sean and Joe here. We don't have Kirsten. I wish she could be here because she shared some ideas with us too that she wanted to make sure that we address. But we've done 6 so far, and we've got 4 more left. But I just want to recap the 6 that we've done so far, because in case you missed, and we do want to make it clear, going to kind of reinforce, because we're trying to put these myths to rest for good. We don't want them to be spread anymore. So the 2 I did were, 1, tornadoes can cross rivers and lakes. The myth being that they cannot. That is a myth. They absolutely can cross rivers, lakes, bays, all bodies of water. My second one was also that you can't rate a tornado by looking at it. Size does not necessarily mean how strong the winds are. You can only rate a tornado after it's passed. You look at the damage that it caused, then a rating is assigned. So you can't look at a tornado and give it a rating. All right, the other 4, Joe did this one, that you can't outrun a tornado in your car, because some tornadoes move very quickly, 40, 50, 60 miles per hour. You also don't know exactly which path the tornadoes don't follow a straight line, nor does the road a straight line. So don't count on outrunning a tornado in your car. That is not going to work. Joe's second one also was breaking down a watch and a warning, because there's still a lot of confusion when it comes to tornado watches and tornado warnings. A watch does not mean that a tornado is occurring. A tornado watch means that conditions are favorable for tornadoes to form. One has not occurred yet, but one could form. Then Sean's 2, his first one was that tornadoes can form in mountains and in hilly terrain. That's another one, because they don't occur very often in mountainous areas. That doesn't mean that they haven't occurred. They absolutely have. The tornadoes have occurred in all 50 states across the US. And then the second point, the second myth that Sean brought up, was that you can't always see a tornado. And we discussed how they're often rain wrapped. At night, you may not see them, especially in certain areas where there are lots of trees. You may not see that tornado, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take shelter if a tornado is worried. Sometimes if a tornado is warned, you should absolutely go ahead and take shelter. Don't wait to see it, because you may very well not be able to see it. It may just be a wall of rain. You may not see that classic looking tornado Sean said from The Wizard of Oz. All right, so we got 4 more to go. I'll go first with my additional myth. And this is one, I'm not going to say his name, but an uncle of mine mentioned this to me a couple of years ago. We were just making small talk and talking about tornadoes. And he said, well, of course, when a tornado warning is issued, but before you go down to the basement, what you have to do is go around your house and open all the windows in the house. That'll protect your house. That'll equalize the pressure when the tornado is coming. I was like, wait, whoa, all right, stop right there. Unfortunately, this one, again, my uncle is not the only one that still believes this one. It goes back to this thought that, yes, and it's somewhat true, that tornadoes are an area of low pressure. And so if the idea is a tornado has such low pressure that if it just moves near your house, it can cause extensive damage just because of the pressure difference between the inside of your home and the outside, with that area of low pressure and the area inside your home being higher pressure. So if you open the windows, that equalizes the pressure, and then your house won't be destroyed by the tornado. And that is just not true. Yes, there's an area of lower pressure within that tornado, but we're only talking about kind of a minor difference. We're not talking about a huge difference in the amount of pressure. And so it's not the pressure difference that causes the damage to your home. It's the wind speeds, and particularly the debris that's picked up in those winds. Actually, a lot of the damage to homes is caused by what's already been picked up. The trees, the tree branches, things that the tornado has already collected, slamming that stuff at high speeds, hundreds of miles per hour into the house. That does damage. So it's the winds themselves that destroy your home. And I hate to think about all the time that can be wasted if you went around and tried to open all the windows in your house, some of which might be locked. It is an absolute waste of time. Do not spend time trying to open all the windows in your house. That is not going to protect your house. Get to that safe space as quickly as possible on the lowest floor, most interior room in the center of your home. Don't waste time opening windows. It is not going to work there. I had to get that off my chest.
Yes. Yeah. Agree. To be honest, I've actually never really heard anybody tell me about the windows opening up. But then again, I'm in Jersey. We don't get too many tornadoes, so a little bit different story for Mr. Matt over there with his Midwestern and separately Texas roots.
I've covered a few tornado warnings already this season already. But and I think, but that's part of it is, areas that experience tornadoes more often, people know some of these myths are kind of bogus. And so we're trying, since we're reaching a national audience here, some of these may be things you're already familiar with, but especially in areas that don't experience tornadoes as much, this is where I find that these myths, really get shared the most, because people just aren't familiar with this. They don't have this actual experience with tornadoes, and they just don't know. So that's why we're doing this episode, and we're debunking this, and hopefully spread the word. Share this episode so we can get the word out, so people can stop believing these falsehoods. So Joe, what is your next myth?
Yeah, so my next one is that tornadoes don't hit major cities. They just hit these rural areas and these small towns. That is not true. A couple things on this. One, and we really have to take like a 360 view of this, is that tornadoes, on the grand scheme of things, are relatively small. So your biggest tornadoes are a mile wide. Your biggest ones, well, a mile wide is still very small compared to the enormity of the United States. And oftentimes they're maybe a couple hundred yards, maybe 100 yards across. So a lot of times it's more, random than anything else that these cities aren't getting impacted. But that doesn't mean there haven't been times where the major cities have been impacted. They have. In fact, just this year, we had that tornado on March 22nd that hit in New Orleans, on the eastern part of New Orleans. We also had one, I believe it was in that same outbreak that hit Jackson, Mississippi. And then also, I think it was 2 years ago, the Nashville tornado, that was on March the 3rd, that came through parts of Nashville and brought a number of damage. So again, that's some proof that we are seeing tornadoes in major cities. They just don't happen that often. Now, the thing I will say is that typically, not always, but typically, your biggest cities are along the east and the west coast of the United States, and generally just aren't as tornado prone. So like Boston, New York, DC, Miami, Jacksonville, LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, so on and so forth. So, it's very possible that tornadoes are missing those large cities, but there's still plenty of other cities in the United States that have seen tornadoes in them.
Yeah. And to that point, Joe, cities are growing in extent. People are moving to more suburban and ex-urban locations. So there are going to be more people where there were tornadoes before. Maybe there weren't people in a field 40 or 50 years ago. That's now some subdivision. So yeah, to that point, exactly. Tornadoes do hit cities, just like we talked about in the mountains. The cities aren't going to do anything special to keep a tornado from hitting. So you need to be very mindful of those things as well, which takes me back to another point in my myth that kind of touches back to what both of you are talking about. The debris is what's really going to get you, right? I still think a lot of us think about that Wizard of Oz thing. You see the tornado, it's going to pick you up and take you a couple of counties away. And that's really not how people get hurt, right? Most people get hurt by flying debris. Huge pieces of flying debris, bricks, 2x4s, chunks of roofs, slinging around 100, 150 miles per hour. That's why you don't want to be anywhere near a window, right? So don't worry that you're going to get picked up. You don't need to go underground because you're going to get worried that you're picked up. I remember that opening scene from Twister as well. Is it theoretically possible? It's something that's got a 250 mile. Yes, it's theoretically possible. But I'm going to tell you, that's not what's going to get you. What's going to get you is some chunk of a house flying around at 125 miles an hour into the wall, or if you're looking out of some window and you're not ready for some piece of wood that comes flying at you at 100 miles an hour and you can't get out of the way in time. We tell you to get low to the ground. That avoids flying debris. I used to tell the elementary school kids when I would visit schools, you see the movies, somebody takes out a gun and everybody drops to the floor. Why? They don't want to get hit by flying bullets. Same thing. There's stuff flying in the air. You want to get below the ground so it doesn't hit you. So you're not going to get picked up and taken a couple of counties away. It's more likely something is going to be flying around that tornado can hit you and impact you. And that's why in a perfect scenario, and there's time, not only do you go to a closet and an interior room and below ground, take a bicycle helmet and put it on if you got it, to protect your head, because that's the most vulnerable part of you, right? Protect your head if you can. And look, if you got time, put on shoes, because if you're in a really bad tornado and you come out from underground and you've had to deal with something that was a 4 or heaven forbid a 5, there's going to be debris all over the place. You don't want to be walking around that stuff in bare feet, right? So yeah, those are those high end. When you hear tornado emergency, hopefully that's not something anybody has to go through who is listening to that, but that's one of the things you got to think about. So that's my big number 9. So that leaves us with one more. And I thought I would kind of jump into this one because I saw this. I was looking at one of these, tornado things online, as we do, about going to the southwest corner of your house. First of all, how many people know where the southwest corner of their house is in the first place? I mean, I know, but I think this kind of got started because often tornadoes do travel from southwest to northeast, but not always. So we need to be clear about that. They are climatologically favored to move in that direction, but it's not a requirement for them to move in that direction. More than anything else, get low to the ground. The southwest corner is not some special kind of place. If anything, I might want to be in the northeast corner, below ground to the northeast corner. So there's more stuff between me and an approaching tornado. But I would not spend a lot of time worrying about, is this the north side? Is this the east? Just get inside. Just get inside and away from windows. Most of the time, that's going to be just fine. So that's number 9 for me, and number 10. So that's 10. We did a top 10. Look at us.
We got our 10.
Look at us, and we're one short, and we did one extra.
Right.
But no, Sean, I did want to piggyback about protecting yourself from the winds and the debris carried in those winds. You made a great point about wearing a helmet. That's something that we try and always encourage people. It's just, again, it's a matter of how much time do you have, but any kind of helmet is good. I've had that question. It's like, does it matter the kind of helmet? And, I think bike helmets are the most common, but if you have a motorcycle helmet, that's fine. A football helmet, anything, any helmet that can protect your head. And if you don't have a helmet, at least crouch down and curl yourself into as tight a ball as possible and put your hands over your head at a minimum. At least it's something. It's not as good as a helmet. But the other thing I tell people to do, it's all about putting as many layers between you and the outside of your home as possible. So I'm talking about any kind of layer. So if you're in an interior bathroom, for example, if there's a bathtub in that bathroom, go ahead and get in the bathtub. It's not much, but it's one extra layer of protection that can protect you from that debris that could be flying around. Also, if you're in an interior closet, you say that's another good place to be. Well, take advantage of the stuff that's in that closet. If there are a bunch of jackets or blankets or extra bed sheets or extra clothes, just surround yourself with that. If you're running to that safe space, grab the comforter off your bed and wrap yourself in that. Again, it's not much, but it's one extra layer. We're trying to put as many layers between you and the outside of your home as possible. Hey, even if it's kind of an artificial layer, it's not an actual wall, it's better than nothing. And again, maybe it'll be that flying debris that's around will scrape the comforter and not scrape you, or hit the helmet and not your head. And that could potentially save your life. So it is about getting as much protection as possible. Anything that you can find, it is better than nothing.
And that's it. Yeah. We covered it. Everybody should be safe now.
Yes. Hopefully, yes. Please go back and re-listen to this episode so you can listen to them all again. Share it with your friends. These are our top 10 tornado myths, and we hope that we are finally putting them to rest.
As they say, it is a journey. It is a journey for sure.
One podcast episode at a time. And like we were saying at the beginning of this podcast, I'm really excited about what we have coming. From all the talks at AMS, I have so many ideas, so many people I want to reach out to as potential guests on this show, and so many topics that we can just discuss as a team. Again, we kind of realize that now we're still in the thick of severe weather season. Hey, we need to do a tornado myths episode. And so just having us all together was great to kind of share ideas, but now we have some potential guests to bring on. So I'm excited about future episodes of Across the Sky, some exciting stuff to come. I don't know about y'all.
Absolutely. I don't know about y'all either.
All right, Joe, we know you got to run, Joe.
I have another meeting to go to. And it's about what we do best, and that's video. We do audio very well as well, as I should say. It was great being with you guys, as always. And we're going to have more podcasts coming up for you next Monday.
Absolutely. Matt, take us home, buddy.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our top 10 tornado myths. More episodes of Across the Sky to come. But thanks for listening this week, folks. Take care.